minutes beforehand, so I'll just start with the introduction. My name is Judy Cook. I'm a nutritional health coach. I'm also a Reiki master, and I have been an occupational therapist for well over 35 years. So healthcare is where I live and breathe, and love to educate and teach people how to better take care of themselves. I work at Grace Wellness Center, which is just down the road at 401 in the Gilford Professional Park. And Grace Wellness is an alternative healthcare option for you. We have a physical therapist who works traditionally but non-traditionally. She tends to dig a little bit deeper and get down to some of the real core things that are causing pain and discomfort. She uses what's called a period called integrated manual therapy. I've worked with her for years. Kim Grace, who is the founder and owner of Grace Wellness Center, is an intuitive healer. She's also a psychic medium. Again, they're all fabulous practitioners, but that's why we're all together. Right? There's myself, there's Nancy, who some of you might know. She's very familiar with the library, and she is a Reiki master and a sound healer. She uses sound bowls, Tibetan sound bowls, and tuning forks in her healing sessions. And then we have Dr. Robin Sickler, who's a functional medicine physician, who again just looks at things a little bit differently than your average doctor. In my opinion, she actually worked with my daughter, who was having a lot of digestive issues and wasn't listening to her mother. But she did listen to Dr. Sicker, and she got at what was the main problem. And she ended up having H. pylori, which is an infection that was causing a lot of the issues for her. And the other doctors, they found some gallstones, and they were ready to, okay, that's it. We'll just do surgery, take your gallbladder out. She is 25 years old. We're gonna take your gallbladder out and they'll be good. They didn't look any further, they didn't look at anything else. They stopped really working with her. And once we got rid of the H. pylori, a lot of the other issues solved themselves, took themselves right out. So sometimes, again, we just have to dig a little deeper and see what the root cause of something is, instead of just treating symptoms. That, treating symptoms works for a while, but it doesn't work long if there's a deeper issue. So that's us at Grace Wellness Center. You're all here today to hear about eating as we age. And not that it's dramatically different than eating through the rest of our lives, but it feels like it should be different. Because we've been around a lot longer. We've been around, and we're going to talk about the 3 primary food groups. And all of those food groups, protein, carbohydrates, and fats, have all gotten a bad rap somewhere in our lifetime. They've all said, you can't have this, you can't have that, it's too much, And the biggest problem is it's really confusing. When you start, really thinking about, and you read different things in the AARP magazines, and you read different things in other magazines and media, Facebook, online, there's a lot of confusing information. And it's not that it's meant to be confusing, it's meant to be, we're humans, there's a lot of variables, and none of us are the same 2 humans, even if we're identical twins. So nothing works for everybody. And that's why working with people with their diet and nutrition, I really talk about an eating philosophy. I don't talk about a diet. I also don't recommend one diet for every single person because that just doesn't work. It's all bioindividuality, which is the way I was taught, and I agree with that. We have to figure out what works for us. So I'm going to give you some basic principles. we're gonna talk about the 3 major food groups, and then we're gonna talk about some of the hot points that are on the high media profile right now. And then hopefully, if I don't talk too much, we will always have time for questions, because I will always say after 11. But I do like to educate, so sometimes I talk too much. It's probably the only time I do talk too much. Okay, so one basic principle is eat as many whole foods as you can. What's a whole food? A whole food is something that you can look at and know where it came from. It's meat, a carrot, cabbage. What's not a whole food is what we call processed and refined foods, foods that are in a packaged box container. I say that, we got, all of our green leafies are typically in containers these days, or a lot of them are. But you want to eat whole foods as much as you possibly can. We talked about avoiding processed and refined foods, and the reason for that, even though they're a little bit easier, because again, we grew up in the generation where fast foods, we saw fast foods come alive, and if we didn't see them, we heard stories about them. For mothers cooking, it got easier because there were TV dinners you could throw on the table when the husband was home late. There was packaged cookies, you didn't have to bake cookies all the time for the children. We saw processed foods come into place, or we heard about them as our mothers lived through that. So, and not that everything in a pack, I have my boxes here, not that everything in a package or a box is the absolute worst thing to eat. And we're going to talk about how you can make some decisions about that. But you want to minimize those as much as you can. Nutrient dense foods, we're going to talk about what, and most of those are your whole foods, have a lot more nutrients, because that's what's really important throughout our lifetime, but especially now as we age, because our bodies slow down, right? Everything slows down as we age. So your body, your digestion slows down a little bit, and your absorption of nutrients slows down. So you want to give your body as many nutrients as you possibly can with the food that you're putting in it. So why not choose food? The more nutrients you have, the healthier you will be. Because in those nutrients, we're talking about vitamins and minerals, fats, and all those things. And we're talking about how important all those things are. Because that is what fuels us. The sugar does not fuel us. It may fuel us for a short period of time, as we all know, but it doesn't fuel our body for health and nutrition. It might give us a little bit of energy, but that energy goes away pretty quickly with sugar. I want you to become, as you leave here today, and some of you have attended one of my other classes, which was intuitive eating and mindfulness. I spoke a lot about just becoming aware of just being present and being in the moment and not being in other places. But I also talked a lot about being aware of how foods affect you. Did you go out for ice cream? Did you have a bellyache the next day or that night? Well, maybe the ice cream, there was a little too much dairy in that ice cream for your stomach. Maybe you can tolerate a little bit here and there, but a full, especially if you got a large, and larges are large these days. I don't understand it, but they are way too large. None of us need that much ice cream. We like it, but we don't need it. Although sometimes it is good emotionally. That's a totally different aspect. So I want you to just become aware. And sometimes if you have a food allergy is going to show up like within 15 minutes. So you're going to know. If you have a food sensitivity, it could take 3 days before you see it, you feel or sense any symptoms. So when you start to get a really bad headache and you don't understand why, you might think back to what you ate earlier in the day, but I want you to go back and think what you ate maybe the day before. You know, and food sensitivities can show up with, they can show up with all kinds of symptoms, headaches, belly aches, cramping, diarrhea, constipation. Sometimes they come through in the skin because your body's trying to get rid of, what it doesn't like, the toxins. So sometimes people will break out a little bit. So they show up in a lot of different ways and we don't really understand it. But if you're not one to get a headache and you get a headache, again, think back about what were you exposed to? Were you exposed to, right now, are you exposed to a lot of pollen that's just really bothering you? Even though it may not have bothered you in years past, it just might be where everything is right now. Because it was cold spring and then everything just boom, popped right out. So just become aware and try to think of how things are affecting it. I want you to chew your food. I want you to slow down when you're eating. Chewing your food, digestion begins in your mouth. Because the enzymes that are released in your saliva help to break down the food. If you chew your food well, you're starting to break it down. Then it gets to the stomach and it's ready for the stomach to do its job. If we chew a couple bites and then swallow, that food is not broken down very well and the stomach has to work harder to break it down. It sits there longer and then it sits there and it can create some issues for us. Okay. So chew your food. I do tell people I prefer you not to eat in front of the TV, even if you're alone. Put on some music, sit at the table so you're up tall. Ever notice dining room table chairs? They make you sit up tall, and they typically are at a different height so that the table's right around here, which is high if you're working on a computer at your dining room table. You want that a little bit lower. But that's so that you're closer to your plate and you sit up tall, you're not doing this. We do this, what are we doing? We're crunching that whole digestive system up. And if it's all crunched up, then it can't do its job very well. People lie down on my table and your stomach starts gurgling. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, your stomach's supposed to be gurgling. That's your stomach working and breaking down the foods. And you only hear it because you've given it space to do all of its work. And you're lying down and it's quiet in the room. Really chew your food. Break it up. And then allow your stomach to do its job. Don't make it work harder than it needs to. None of us need to work harder than we need to, right? In our stomachs. Water. Water is huge. Huge, huge, huge. And when we age, we tend to pull back from drinking water because we might have some urinary issues, some incontinence issues, or we have to go to the bathroom frequently. And I see it all the time with older people. Drink it when you can. If you're going out in the afternoon, drink as much as you can in the morning. At night, we always tend to stay away from drinking at night. I'll tell you, I get up to go to the bathroom once, maybe twice a night. Now, I'm fortunate that most nights I don't have a difficulty falling back to sleep. But every time I go to the bathroom, I have a little cup. I have actually a big cup right next to the sink, and I drink another glass of water. During the day, I don't always have time to drink water or enough water that as much as I would like to drink. So I get it in at night. And I figure as long as I'm falling back to sleep, that's a good way for me to hydrate. Now, for a lot of people, that would make things worse. I'm just telling what works for me, and you need to find what works for you. And I don't like to say this, but if you are going out and you're concerned, I would personally, for me, I would rather wear something that would protect me than not drink the water when I think about my health. And as much as we don't want to think about that, if it gives you a little bit more security and a little bit more comfort level, and you can be hydrated with that security, to me, it's worth it. It may not be to you, but I just ask you to think about that. But water is, we're 80% water. I'm not sure if that's an accurate statistic, but we're somewhere up there. I think it's actually a little bit more. And so our body needs that water to replenish. It also helps get the toxins out. You know, even if we're eating as clean can be, which, you know, that's really hard to do. It's not just the toxins in our food, it's the toxins in the air. Like I said, pollen's a toxin right now for a lot of people. It's toxin from our cars. It's toxins from just pollution. Fires out west. You know, there was a time last year where some of that smoke was kind of actually headed our way, even though we weren't anywhere near it. So all those things, smoke from cigarettes, all those things are toxins that our body takes in. Chemicals from cosmetics or perfumes or deodorants and things like that. Those are all toxins. Your body helps to flush those out. Can go on about what. Eat local when you can. We are fortunate we have a lot of farmers in our area. And by eating local means that you know your farmer, you know what they use on their crops. Do they use a lot of pesticides? Do they not use a lot of pesticides? And that's a huge toxin. But eat local when you can, because most of the farmers in this area try to minimize what they use of it. You know, and then you know it's fresh. You know, it hasn't gotten picked, put in a refrigerator, and then transported and then put out at the grocery store. So you know it's fresher. And a lot of people say that if I eat whole foods, it's more expensive than it is for, you know, packaged foods. I will agree with you when you start to make that transition. But once you make that transition into buying more whole foods, you know, they talk about shopping the outskirts of the grocery store. They're not shopping the inner parts of the grocery store. And again, we're all on this continuum. Some of us are over here and eating everything out of a package. And some of us are over here who eat 100% organic and do everything we're supposed to do all the time. I don't know anybody over there. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. But if you shop at your local farmers, then you know it's fresh. It typically tastes better. It might be more expensive. But when you start just buying, you're minimizing all the extra stuff, the budget balances out. Typically, right now, that's a bit of a trick because everything's so much more expensive than it was a year ago. Eat what you eat locally where you can. Protein. Do not. I don't eat. Your body needs protein. As we age, your body needs as much protein as it did when you were 21 years old, at your peak of health and body wellness, typically. And the reason you need that protein is because protein repairs and rebuilds our cells. Every cell depends on us eating protein every day to do that. That's one of the reasons why we sleep 8 hours of our day, so our body can rebuild itself and repair itself from the day. Protein helps to stabilize our blood sugars. It takes longer for our body to break down the protein, so the blood sugars stabilize, are more stable than if we eat something that's very sugary or very simple in its molecular structure. We'll talk about that. Those get broken down real quickly. But if you have protein, then you've got your body's breaking it down and it's got something to work with, and the blood sugar stabilize for a longer period of time. Protein helps to stabilize mood swings, satisfy our body and our hunger, so maybe we eat a little bit less. That's the one thing. We probably, if we're not moving as much as we did when we were in our 40s or our 50s, or even our 30s, then we may need to eat a little bit less. Doesn't mean we have to take something out, we just might need to eat a little bit less of it. There is some reference to eating your bigger meal earlier in the day, or eating more protein early in the day, so that it can sustain your body throughout the day. When it works, great. In talking with people, I'll talk to them about eating leftover vegetables and a piece of chicken for breakfast. It's what's breakfast? Cereals, toast, English muffins, all those carbohydrates, right? Pancakes, French toast. Yes, there's eggs in there, and yes, there's bacon, and we'll talk about those. So breakfast is a lot of carbs, a lot of simple carbs. And people look at me like, I can't eat. My sister says, I can't eat vegetables and chicken for breakfast. Well, why not? Where is it written in stone that we can't do that? You know, maybe try it once. And then maybe try it again down the road. What's wrong with trying it? I did bring some lentil soup today. I thought, oh, it's raining, I can have an excuse to bring lentil soup. Yes, I know it's the morning. But a lot of people don't know lentils, and they're a good source of protein. So I wanted you to have the opportunity to try it. And my husband is going away on business next week, which I was thinking, okay, what's my meal plan gonna be? I'm like, lentil soup is gonna be part of my meal plan. And that might be breakfast as well as lunch. Who knows? We want variety. Okay. Proteins also are the most alkalizing foods, and we need a certain pH in our bodies. We want to be less than 3 if you ever look at your blood work. And you know, we don't want to be too acid, and we don't want to be too low in acid. We need to be somewhere in the middle there. Protein helps with anxiety, and it also, protein is where we get our tryptophan. We've always heard about the turkey making the tryptophan, and the tryptophan goes to the brain, and the brain makes serotonin, and serotonin is our happy hormone, right? That is very true. It's very true. So protein helps, that's where it helps with the mood swings. Okay. I have a handout for you, so you don't need to write all this down. Protein options, okay? Because we think of protein, we think of animal meat, right? That is our best source of protein. It's the easiest source. That's where most of our amino acids are in one food, is in our meats. Okay? But not all of us can do meats. So let's look at some options. Eggs are a good source of protein. The cholesterol thing with eggs has gone away. Where eggs have gotten a bad rap, that has gone away. And I will tell you, in my personal and professional life, for every article I find to support a food, I can find an article to negate it. So that's where we come back to being aware of how your body reacts to a food, and what a food, you know, is that food giving you a good source of something that your body needs, regardless of what you've read. Because like I said, I can find one to support it and one to negate it. And that's why are we confused? This is why we're confused. Because we all have we're humans, and there's all kinds of different opinions out there. Dr. Gandhi, Dr. Ox, you know, Oz, you know, all different opinions because they've all had different experiences. You know, we've all got 2 different doctors and have different opinions given up to us, or 2 different, you know, it's just, that's human. Okay, eggs, good source. A protein powder. That's a lot of, you know, big hullabaloo right now is you get a protein powder. Protein powders, especially if you eat more on a vegetarian or a vegan diet, it is a good way to get protein. Look at your ingredients. It's in a container, it's in a package. Look at your ingredients. A lot of them have stevia in them. Is stevia something that your body can tolerate? It's not my favorite thing, but for some people it's okay. So just look at your ingredients, see what's in that protein powder. Some protein powders are just pea protein. I know one that's just pea protein, sunflower, and pumpkin seeds. Simple, right? There's other protein powders out there that have other, lots of other nutrients in it as well, which is another way for you to get more nutrients, more vitamins and minerals. But just look at those ingredients and see what's in there. Some of them are made with whey protein, so if you're not someone who can tolerate dairy, then you need to be careful of that. I brought my little protein bites over there, and they're made with almond flour. They're made with peanut butter, so if don't do nuts, please don't eat them. They have chia seeds and flax seeds and poppy seeds in them. Chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, all those are really good sources of protein. Your nuts, we all know that nuts are a good source of protein, you just have to be careful with how much you eat them. Nut butters, I tell people all the time, this is one of my favorite things to tell people, find a nut butter or a seed butter. If you can't do nuts, try sunflower butter. Have a jar available. It's a great little snack. Stick a spoon in and take a spoonful of it. Doesn't mean you have to put it on a piece of toast or bread, but just have a little spoonful, and it's one way for your body to get a little extra protein. Sometimes if I've eaten too much vegetarian, my body is looking for protein, trying to start asking for protein. And I'm not gonna make, a piece of chicken late at night. So I'll go and have a spoonful of peanut butter. And that usually, because sometimes my body's looking for something, those are the nights that I don't get to sleep. That I just don't fall asleep easily. So sometimes I'll go and I'll have a spoonful of peanut butter, and that usually, one spoonful will give me, enough. If I'm having a really, I'm like, why do I have not any energy at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? And again, if I'm home, I will grab a spoonful of peanut butter. I use the natural peanut butter. So it's a quick, easy thing. Protein bars, again, they can be very helpful to get more protein in. Look at your ingredients. Ideally, you want less than 5 ingredients, but that's again on the continuum. If we have time, we'll look at those boxes. But just look at your ingredients and see what's in those protein bars. A lot of protein bars, again, they have whey in them, the ones that are like 20 and 30 grams pop. And they have a lot of other stuff in them. I always say, if you can't pronounce it, do you really want your body to try to digest it? And sometimes, but again, you need, if you're here and you want to take a step here, just look at the ingredients and see, is this box better than that box? Fish, obviously, great source of protein. Salmon, halibut, the great omega-3s. Greek yogurt versus regular yogurt. The Greek yogurt has more protein in it. And the yogurt is great because you get the probiotics. Talked about more seeds. Kale, spinach, asparagus, arugula, broccoli, all have about 5 grams in 1 cup. So, and we've all heard green leafies, and we're going to talk about green leafies a lot today. So know that when you're eating those things, you're getting a little bit of protein as well. Anything else that I forgot? Quinoa used to be my food for the year, a couple of years ago, and actually stuck with me, but it's still a good food. If you don't know what quinoa is, it's pseudo cereal, and it's gluten-free. Cooks up in 15 minutes. Cup of quinoa, 2 cups of water, 15 minutes, you get a nice bucket. I get that bucket, it's not a huge bucket, but I stick it in the fridge, and then I take a scoop out, and that's my breakfast. I put some berries on it, some sunflower seeds, maybe a little maple syrup, or a little honey. And it's a great go grab and go breakfast. Also, you can put some balsamic vinegar on it with some leftover vegetables. It could be an easy lunch. Or an easy dinner if you have a bigger lunch, depending on what your schedule is for the day. So quinoa is a really good source of protein. So back to my little list: movement, exercise, however you can, whenever you can. And it, even if you're sitting in the chair and just tapping your feet, kicking your legs out, while you're watching TV, squeezing your butt. I always tell people when you're driving long distance, squeeze your butt because it increases the circulation and the blood flow. So when you get out, you can actually stand up straight. And I'm serious. I am dead serious. You can stand up straight when you get out of the car. It works because it's getting the blood flow moving. Eat a rainbow. That just means eat a variety of colors. Because each of those colors has a different nutrient, vitamin or mineral in it. So the more color you eat, the more vitamins and minerals you get. That's where that comes from. And then stress management. Because we all know stress does a lot to our bodies. And it affects us. It affects us physically as well as mentally and emotionally. So as much as we can help manage our stress. So, all right. So real quickly, one of the best things you can do about stress is breathe and focus in on your breath. So I'm gonna have you all sit up nice and straight. Take a nice deep breath in. And breathe out. Now I want you to slouch. Go ahead. It's the only time I ever push people to slouch. Take a deep breath in. And blow it out. Which one did you get more oxygen in? The first one. When you're sitting up nice and tall again, as I said earlier, if you're eating like this, which happens a lot of times if we sit on the couch to eat, you're crunching on those organs. And you're crunching the lungs. The lungs can't expand if you're slouched. Your stomach can't work as well if it's crunched up. The same things with you guys. So you got 26 feet of intestines in there. I'm not sure it's the best design, but it is what we have. And you think about it, it's just all crumbled up there. Is it seat up here if you like? No, we don't like the front. Those chairs aren't easy to separate. So as much as you can, sit up nice and tall and breathe. Breathing can be one of the easiest things for us to do to decrease our stress. And it's one of the things, all we have to do is focus in on it. Because then it focuses on us, and a good deep breath helps to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, especially if you hold that breath for a little bit. And if you really exhale, get that carbon dioxide out. Stress, again, can be a horror. Okay, so we talked about protein. Any questions?
Yeah, how many grams of protein should we have per day?
For a male, so you should have 15 to 30 grams per meal. That's a lot. It feels like a lot. An average size of meat is usually considered the size of your fist or the size of your palm. So more like 3-4 ounces. So if you think about, how much we actually do eat in a day, you really work it out. I think like a cup of half to 3/4 cup of quinoa is about an appropriate amount of serving for that meal. So, but yeah, and it's hard to figure out the grams because things don't always come in grams, like you look serving size and it tells you what a gram is. Well, I don't know what a gram is, just tell me what 1 bar is. I don't wanna know what the gram is. Again, they don't make it easy for us to know. But if you look things, actually, I think I brought a handout, ask me after this. Brought a handout that has lists of proteins and amount of grams.
What about vegetarian substitutes, veggie burgers and things like that?
Watch your ingredients. Good sources, but just like everything else, you need to watch your ingredients because sometimes they just put fillers in there or they put synthetic things in there. So look at your ingredients. I have found a veggie burger that's made with quinoa and beets, and it actually sticks together. I don't put it on the grill, but I do put it in the oven and it sticks together, and I haven't had anyone that I've served it to yet that has not liked it. I actually have that recipe. But when you're purchasing your meat substitute, like chicken sausage, again, look at your ingredients and make your decision. So you have to look at that. And I think, in protein, I don't think I said beans. Beans are a good source of protein. Black beans tend to be better. You do need to be careful with beans. So for some people, they bloat people. They cause bloating. So you have to be careful.
Judy, did you say that you made the veggie burger?
Did I make it today?
No, I'm just saying it's hard to find
Yes.
up here, like
Yes. I mean, you've
a
got
good one, a
Yeah.
good veggie burger.
Right. You've got Morningstar, and again, it's one of those things that I had vegetarians coming to my house
Me too.
years ago, and I wasn't as good as I am now at providing those different sources. So I would buy the, I don't know what brand, Morningstar is the one that comes to mind. I'm not sure it's them. I don't want to think about them. And then, so I would have those available for my daughter or my guest or whatever. And then one day I did look at the ingredients. And I'm like, oh, is this as good as is this the best thing that I can be serving them? And so I started looking for recipes and trying to do with this. The one with the quinoa and the beets, we'll talk about the beets later, tends to work really well. It has black beans in it. But with all the other things in there,
And you have the recipe?
I do. All the other things within there that are in there, because black beans, if I eat too much of them, I am one of those people that it will cause bloating. But those veggie burgers, because there's enough other things in there, especially the beets, help to break down the black beans for me so that they don't bloat. All right, talk about proteins, fats, are category number 2. We need good fats. Again, we all went through the phase that all fats are bad for us. We shouldn't be eating a low fat diet. We need fats. Our body needs fats. Can't express that enough. Fats are necessary for hormone production, including your thyroid hormone. We get older and we think, well, we don't need hormones. Well, we don't need as much of the estrogen, progesterone. But there are a lot of other hormones in our bodies that are reproduction and sexual hormones. Your thyroid hormone. Your body needs good fat to make cholesterol so that it can then make, because the cholesterol then makes the hormone. So if we don't eat fat, our body can't do that. It maintains a healthy brain. Our brains are 60% fat. Essential fatty acids are crucial for our brain integrity, our mood, our cognition, and our neuromuscular system. Fats keep us also satisfied for a longer period of time. So again, it might help us to eat a little bit
less.
helps decrease inflammation. And inflammation, they're now saying that inflammation is part of the cause for Alzheimer's, it's part of the cause for cardiac issues, cancer. We all know of inflammation in the joints. That's helped to improve our immune system and our skin and eye health. So, what are good fats? Bacon is your acronym. B is for bacon and butter. Yes, butter is a good thing. Please use butter, not margarine. Look at your ingredients on margarine and you can't pronounce any of it. So maybe the first two things. Or England. A is avocados. Avocados are definitely one of your superfoods. Avocado, put it on the top of the salad. Put it on the pizza.
Toast.
On toast, yes. You know, little salt, sea salt, little pepper. That's just a great little lunch. Will hold you most of the afternoon. Especially if you have a multi-grain bread. C is for coconut oil. O is for olive oil. N is for nuts. And I put nuts and seeds. Again, just watch your portions with nuts. Because they can be high calorie. Good fats are also in your salmon, your trout, your mackerel, your herring. Flax seeds are good omega-3s and whole eggs.
Does it matter whether the nuts are roasted or not?
Again, it depends on who's roasting them and how they're roasted. Most roasted nuts have salt on them, so it depends how much salt you can tolerate and you can have. I don't allow salt. Don't be afraid of salt, especially sea salt, because it has more minerals in it than your little umbrella girl. Thank you. You know, and your body needs salt as well. If you're under a lot of stress, I will tell people to put some sea salt in a glass of water and drink it. Because the salt helps to support the adrenal glands. And your adrenal glands are what makes your stress hormone. Of course. Can be a really good trick to help just calm your body. So, now, that said, if you have extremely high blood pressure and you've been told to stay totally away from salt, you need to take that into consideration. Just always take that into consideration. Is what your history is. I don't know anybody's history here, but what your history is and what what you're working on. And we'll talk about that when we get into some of the other areas, because magnesium is a big hot topic right now. But magnesium may not be good if you have a certain condition and you have certain medications that you're on. So always consider gonna add a new supplement or a new something or other. Just speak to your doctor about it. You never know how it's, or your pharmacist. Your pharmacist should have some education. Problem with good nutrition is a lot of our doctors are not educated in nutrition. They may have gotten one day of it. So you go in and ask them about this food or that food, and it's like they don't have an answer for you, or they avoid the answer because they don't know. So and pharmacists tend to be similar. They're not really educated in it, but they're chemists, really, and they may have stepped into nutrition. So some you can find are much better about it. When the hospital had their pharmacies, the beach cruises, they were awesome about asking questions. And they would tell you right away if they didn't know the answer. Don't frequent the pharmacist where you can't tell you that exactly what pharmacy. So I visited them a lot, but I questioned them a lot about things. Okay, Carbohydrates. I think there should be 2 groups in carbohydrates. And there are, but they all get lumped into the carbohydrates. Everything's low carbohydrates. Okay, so then we're just afraid of carbohydrates. So there's the simple carbohydrates, which are your simple sugars. They're used by your body, they're used very quickly. Not very nutrient dense. Okay, that's your basic white sugar, it's your brown sugar, it's your processed sugar. Anything with an OSC on your ingredient list is a sugar. So it's your cakes, your cookies, your candies, your ice cream, it's all the really stuff that our tongue really loves. And we sometimes really like to have. And sometimes we fall back on for emotions. But it's used quickly, it's burned quickly. And then we're done. It doesn't serve us, it doesn't give us fuel for the whole day. Sometimes fruit juices fall into that category as well. Fruit, some of our fruits can be more in the simple carbohydrate category. The difference between fruit and a cookie, you get a lot more vitamins and minerals out of that piece of fruit than you do out of it. So, and then, so again, more nutrient dense. Also have more fiber as well. And we know there's, the sugars, we all talked about, feed the grandkids the sugar and send them home. Because you spike up the blood sugar and then they crash. And I had a friend when we were raising children together. She would give her child a sweet, but she would also make sure she had some protein with it. And that can make it. Not that I'm recommending all those good stuff. So artificial sweeteners, sometimes stevia can work for a lot of people, but a lot of people can't. A lot of people use headaches. A lot of people I try to tell people to stay away from artificials because again, they're processed. They have been processed and they're not, your body doesn't necessarily recognize them, so you can't break it down very well. So your complex carbohydrates. The reason they're called complex is because they're just a bigger molecule. So it takes your body longer to break it down. And the more it gets broken down, and the better it can be absorbed. We talked about chewing, so that we can, the stomach can break foods down, and then when it gets into the intestines, we can absorb those nutrients. And so eating complex carbohydrates gives us more vitamins. Typically, there's more vitamins and minerals, more fiber. It helps us feel fuller longer again, and it gives us more energy. It doesn't, and consistent energy. Give us this. For complex carbohydrates are your fruits, your veggies, your multigrain breads and pastas. I've heard go brown versus white in the grains as much as you possibly can. Right? That's not good for you. Is it? Yeah. My recommendation is fruits can be sugars. 2 veggies to every fruit in your day. So if you eat 3 fruits, you gotta eat 6 vegetable servings that day. Okay. So how do we get more vegetables into our diet? Roasting vegetables with a little bit of olive oil or coconut oil, a little sea salt, a little pepper. There's these grinders that have pepper and garlic in them. Garlic, add a nice little flavor, put it on your avocado toast as well. Put them on a cookie sheet, toss them in the oven at 350, 375, depending on your oven, 15 to 20 minutes. And those roasted vegetables, I'll tell you, will taste a lot better than the ones your mother ate when you were a little kid. Maybe not the lima beans, but they can be really tasty. Brussels sprouts, asparagus, beets, You know, we roast our potatoes, but we don't roast our other vegetables. Why is that? It's simple. It's really simple. It's very, you know, it's very easy to do. My friend, sweet potatoes, just throws everything in, roast all the vegetables. Another way to do vegetables, like when we age, sometimes we don't like protein, full protein or hard, you know, raw fruits, raw vegetables, because we have dental issues. So, you know, cook up your vegetables instead of eating raw carrots. You know, cook them up a little bit. They don't have to be mush. Just cook them up a little bit. One way to get more veggies is, so if you boil those carrots or those beets or steam your broccoli or your spinach, save your water. Water's got color in it, right? After you steamed or boiled it, save that water. Put it in a mason jar. Put it in your fridge. That can be the start of your vegetable soup. That can be your vegetable stock. It can do smoothies. It can be the base for your smoothie. I guarantee you. So then you're not throwing that green water out in the broccoli in the plastic. You're saving it. You know, you're not getting rid of all those nutrients, because they say steam versus oil, because you have more nutrients. But there's something, you know, carrots and beets don't steam very well. They're just that hard. They're a root vegetable, they're hard. But save the water. Do something kind of be the base of your smoothie. Or just drink it. When you drink all these flavored waters, why not drink a little bit of carrot water? Instead of, you know, having to go to the grocery store and buy a whole box of carrot juice. So just get creative. Cook them up and you have leftovers. Chop them up a little bit more, put in the salad. Beets, we're gonna talk about beets. Beets are one of your best, if you go home and you add beets to your diet, then it's been a successful day. Beets really help, they thin the bile in your gallbladder, so that your gallbladder doesn't get clogged up and junky. It helps, and because of that, then it helps, because the bile helps to break down the foods, then it helps with, again, nutrient absorption. Somewhere I have a list of what other things. Okay, I'll go back. Sure. They're a root vegetable, like carrot. So root vegetables tend to be sweeter. Why do they like carrots? They're a little sweet. But it's a natural sugar, right? Just like a fruit. But it's in the vegetable category. So yes, again, if you have diabetes and blood sugar issues, you need to be careful. You can't eat all three of the big beets that you got at the grocery store today in one sitting. But can you have a half a cup a day? You certainly can. If you're not eating a bunch of other sugars, you're diabetic. So, in my opinion, the nutrients you get out of beets and the benefits you get out of beets outweighs the sugar. And again, that depends on where you're coming from and what other things you're involved with. I think they're one of, you know, yeah, I think they're great. If you want to talk about that more later, there's more issues.
How do you feel about canned vegetables?
Not a huge fan, because they are loaded with salt. You pay more if they take more salt out, if they don't put as much salt in, which just drives me crazy. I would rather see you eat frozen vegetables, because they're chopped, they're cut up, they're easy, and they're in the freezer. And they can stay in the freezer for a period of time. Anything in your freezer you should try to use it within 3 months, just for, you know, to maintain nutrients. But they can stay in the freezer. And they're easy. Again, toss a bunch of frozen vegetables on a cookie sheet. If you want, you can spice them up with a little spice and a little oil and toss them in the oven and you're done.
Much better divided frozen vegetables than we can.
Right. Yeah, you usually get more nutrients than you frozen. And I think price wise, they're pretty equal.
I like to use when I steam my vegetables, they have the bags that you can put in the microwave. And they just seem to come out so much better than when I put them in a pot. You get these bags and it tells you right on there, like, oh, if you have broccoli in here, here's how long to cook it for. And they come out like nice and not so soggy or.
Where do you find those bags? Are they in the tin foil and stuff?
Yes, I get them at Walmart. And I reuse them
Do
too.
you know what the name called?
I think they're by Reynolds. Yeah, it's part of their line. But they're, I don't know, there's probably 5 in a package or something, but a lot of times I'll wash it out and reuse it because you can. But it tells you right on there, like, oh, if you have a half a bag, you know, here's how many minutes to put it in, and like asparagus comes out great in them, you know. I really like them.
All right, fiber. Fiber helps to build our intestinal wall, to keep our intestinal wall cell lining healthy. So the more fiber we eat, the better intestinal that will be. It also helps to bind with our waste so that we aren't constipated. We've all heard, you don't want to be constipated, increase your fiber. Again, fiber also helps to decrease the blood sugar spikes. Foods that are really high in fiber: berries, pears, lentils, artichoke hearts, Brussels sprouts, chia seeds, avocados, quinoa, chickpeas, and your whole grains, your brown foods. Magnesium, we'll talk. Again, I only pulled this because it seems to be everybody's talking about magnesium. Magnesium for constipation, I'm taking magnesium for my leg cramps, and so I wanted to chat about that. So if you do a little research, it does help to normalize your blood pressure, it helps keep your bones strong, it's good for your heart rhythm. And it does prevent constipation. It's usually your #1 ingredient in laxatives. Foods that are high in magnesium: green leafy vegetables, spinach, kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage. Nuts and seeds, especially your pumpkin seeds, your black beans, peas, your whole grains, avocado again, your potatoes with the skins, your Greek yogurt, halibut, salmon, and cocoa powder. All of us who like our chocolate. Right. Food sources are always your best way to get anything that your body needs as best as you can. Hippocrates said, use food as your medicine and medicine as your food. B12, the one thing that most vegetarians or vegans lack is B12 because the biggest source of B12 is your animal foods. Eggs, fish. And so a lot of times, if we're, again, if you're lacking in something, try to figure out what it is. Your physicians can give you a test to find out what you're, it might be a hair analysis, it might be a urine analysis, but to find out if you're lacking in vitamins and minerals. They don't often do it, but they have the ability to. Information. B12 is also essential for your red blood cells and healthy brain function. But your biggest sources are your animal foods and your eggs. When we talk about inflammation, we often hear about, we also think about our joints. They get stiff, they don't want to move, so forth. 3 most common food groups that increase inflammation in our body: gluten, dairy, sugar. For me, sugar is the biggest one. Personally, I feel it in my fingers. I have one finger that I jammed when I was a parent of young children at the picnic table. And maybe that one talks to me. But I also I'll feel it in my knees at times too. Like, why are my knees so stiff? It's not probably so just again, that's increased, that's my awareness of my body, and that's what I have discovered. And typically, from my healthcare peer group, it's also what most people say, sugar is the biggest one. For most people. Okay. Stomach acid. I was working for the VNA, and on every diagnosis list, not everyone, on the majority of diagnosis lists was GERD, which is reflux, acid reflux. And I'm like, so then as a health coach, I'm thinking, so why is that? So I started doing some research, and it's because, as we said earlier, as we age, everything slows down a little bit. If you don't like it, it is what it is. And we gotta work with it. We'll fight it, work with it. Stomach and decreased stomach, we decrease the making of stomach acid in our stomach as we age. And a lot of people will think of GERD as being too much acid. It's really that there's too little acid in your stomach. So that the food is not getting broken down by that stomach acid. And then that's what comes up. So there's actually a diagnosis. Decreased acid also causes us, it doesn't allow for key minerals and proteins to get absorbed. It's responsible for killing bacteria in our food. So it has a huge role. Again, there's balance. Balance, not too much acid, not too little acid, a nice pH in our system. Find that balance. So what causes decreased stomach acid? Age, stress is a big one. Smoking, alcohol, and PPIs or antacids. You're only meant to be on them for a short period of time. And what happens, the same thing with, like, if you take a stool softener every day. So if you take a stool softener or an antacid every day because you have problems, then your body relies on that to take care of the issue versus your body taking care of the issue itself. You've worked, you've done a lot of work to try to decrease the GERD, decrease the reflux, or decrease the constipation, and nothing's worked, and this is what works. I'm not going to tell you to change that. But just think about that. Do you want your body doing its job, or do you want the drug that you're taking to do its job? You want to try to do it with food.
There was a time like that, right? That was like maple spoon. Why is that beneficial, or is that just rags marketing?
In my professional opinion, I think it's beneficial.
Okay.
And most people, some people just can't tolerate it. Don't drink it don't take a shot of it by itself. It breaks down your enamel like teeth.
Mm.
Chris Blackwell would have my head if I told you to do that. Dilute it, put it, start with a teaspoon and a glass of water and drink it. Best first thing in the morning because you don't have any other taste in your mouth. So you don't have any sweetness in your mouth. So it's not a ooh. You do it first thing in the morning when your mouth is pretty fresh. It tends to go down better from my experience. And I do this. I have my husband do it. He forgets. I get distracted. I forget, and then I go back to it. So it's it's something that I think is a good thing. Bragg's, because it has the mother in the vinegar, that's your best. But I tell people, if you can just, whatever vinegar you have, whatever apple cider vinegar you have in your house, start with that. See if it's something that you can do, because the Bragg's is a lot more expensive than your Hannaford brand. So a couple of foods that help with stomach acid: papayas, pineapple, ginger, fermented food, pickles, sauerkraut, kombucha. Yeah. Price higher. Again, some people can do the kombuchas and some people can't. It's a fermented tea, so it does have caffeine in it, so be careful with that. Some people make their own. For some people it helps. Try it. There's a bunch of them in the grocery store in the fruit aisle. See if it helps, if it can help you. Chew your food. Break down your food so that your stomach acid doesn't have, it does its job and you're not going to another job. Okay. I have two handouts here. One talks about all the basic things that we talked about earlier: drink water, eat breakfast, eat at regular intervals, avoid sugars and processed sweets. It's got the fats on there, the bacon acronym, make sleep a priority. It's where our body rebuilds and repairs itself. We all need sleep. It's critical. And then this other handout that I have is foods that are high in protein. Again, we need that protein as we age. And then some of the foods that are nutrient dense. And what I did was I took, this list is my list that I created, but it's my list of all the things that I talked about today. I talked about fibers, I talked about complex carbohydrates, I talked about fats, talked about vitamin B, and inflammation. So these are the foods that kept coming up and more frequently in most of those areas. Okay, so that's how I chose them.
Judy, do you need me to make copies?
No,
Okay.
Certainly have them.
Okay.
Although, no.
13 people.
I don't know how many to copy.
I can always make copies.
On the table, please help yourself to the treats. There are recipes for everything that's there. So if you like it, I do not give out recipes that are too complicated. I like to cook and I like to play in the kitchen, but I don't have time to spend all day. And I tend, when my schedule allows, like in the winter, like I'll spend a Sunday afternoon cooking. Cause it's just fun. It's snowing out, can't do much else. I don't wanna go shovel yet. I procrastinate the shoveling.
Yeah, there are two, and then the second one.
So I'll just, if I know the snowstorm's coming, then I'll make sure I've got the ingredients and I make a bunch of stuff, make a bunch of soups and stews or whatever. And I stick them in the freezer. And then I don't have to cook every week. I can pull out. I'm really good at using my anything that's in my freezer within that 3-month time frame. Because if I pull it out of the freezer, I don't have to cook it. So I just have to defrost it. That's part of me. I'm also a planner. Because I never liked going to the grocery store more than once, even before COVID. So it's also been a great way for me to kind of, what's in my freezer? What can I pull out? And I don't have to cook this. So just, and find a way to kind of, and especially when we're alone, we don't like to cook. It's not as much fun to cook for ourselves. I always tell people, invite somebody over, or, if you don't want to cut the recipe in half because it's too, you don't want to do that. It's just too tough. You know, so if you don't wanna invite somebody over, just make it a little extra and give a little extra to a friend. Cause they're gonna be really happy when they don't have to cook, and maybe they'll cook something and send it over your, over to you someday. But, utilize the community that we have here. Like, you three ladies were chit-chatting away when you got here. Utilize your community. If you're alone, invite somebody over. We're meant to, food and eating is meant to be a community event, which is part of the, and then it's just a lot of work to do for yourself. But you're worth it. You are worth it. Because eating and cooking for yourself is the best thing that you can do for your health. Because you know what's going in that food. And that food is your medicine. The more good stuff you throw in there, and if a recipe doesn't, like this lentil recipe called for carrots, onions, and celery. Well, I had some leftover broccoli last night, and I'll guarantee you next week when I'm eating that lentil soup, I'm gonna throw the broccoli in there too. Why not? Why not throw some more vegetables in there?
We're missing some of the copies.
Yeah, did you pass out the second one?
No,
yet?
I didn't,
Okay,
and
I'm
that
gonna
one
grab
I-
one and make some copies. for
Yeah.
the resident. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
there are recipes for the things that I brought. On the side, I have my handout that I had for the intuitive eating class that I did in the mindfulness class. So if you'd like to take those, go free. I don't think I have enough for everybody in the room, but Patty might go run.
I have a question on the sea salt. Should we use the white sea salt more
The
than
pink
should
one.
we use the pink Himalayan? Because I buy both.
Yeah.
I didn't know which ones preferred.
I'm not sure that it makes a difference. I haven't read anything that one makes the difference or the other. I just can tell you that the sea salt does have more minerals in it. Caffeine, again, article to negate it, article to support it. I recommend no more than 1.5 cups, which is a total of 12 ounces a day. That's my personal and professional recommendation. And if you're drinking it, why are you drinking more than that? Are you drinking it because it's habit? It's because you like sitting down in the morning and relaxing and reading paper, whether the paper's on your iPad or not, or whether you just like that quiet time in the morning. It's like the glass of wine for the younger women and maybe for us as well, but is it a habit? And if it's a habit, is there something you can do to change and modify that habit so you can increase how much caffeine you have? For every glass of caffeine, every cup of caffeine, which is 8 ounce cup, every cup of caffeine, you need to have an extra glass of water. Caffeine is a diuretic. So if you do have urinary issues, think about, can I cut back my caffeine and will that make a difference for me? So if you're drinking lots of caffeine and you're not drinking a lot of water because you don't want to go pee, switch it up, please. Decaf does tend to have some caffeine in it, but it's, again, it helps to break that habit, and it's less caffeine. But again, you have to be careful because again, it can be dehydrated. Be careful. Herbal teas are a great substitute if you like herbal teas. I have the front row got the second sheet.
Oh, just, you only
The
have,
back.
so we need, how many do we need this one, 5?
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
So, yes. Caffeine, the cocoa, the chocolate, coffee bean does have some benefits in it. You think about how long it's been processed and how far it goes. Anybody else questions?
increase the fiber, I have to increase my fiber.
Yes.
Any suggestion that we start eating vegetables and fruits and whole wheat?
Those are definitely your best bet. I do believe I have a handout on fiber that I can give you. I think oatmeal is worse. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I have that I eat like this.
Yeah. Right. So.
But I don't want to increase my weight.
Correct. Yes. So and that's, and that's the thing you need to be careful of is, is if you have any medical issues going on, you need to figure out what your balance is.
But in the old times, they used to say, you don't eat anything with little seeds and things. And I believe now that's been changed completely, and now you can eat tomatoes and strawberries and everything.
However, if you eat them and you have symptoms after that, then that's your body saying that that doesn't work for where your body is right now.
Like with everything.
So I don't care what I've got all the articles over here saying you don't need to have this and you can eat this, you can eat this. If it's not agreeing with your body and it's aggravating your symptoms, listen to that. Pull it out. You don't need it. Like your berries are great because they got lots of flavonoids in them, lots of polynutrients in them. However, they do have a lot of seed in them. So if you have diverticulitis or some of those other things, they may not go well for you. You may need to look at other foods that can give you those flavonoids. So forth. So I don't care whether I don't care who has told you, oh, you can eat that now, or you can't. It changes, just like eggs. How many times do we hear eggs are the worst thing possible for us?
And then they're the best. Eggs are good, eggs are bad, eggs are good.
Right. So with any of the foods, stop and just take a moment, be aware, if you're consuming your food, be aware of how it's affecting your body. If your symptoms start acting up,
Not few things.
then those figs or those strawberries weren't the things for you to have. Maybe you can have, 3 strawberries, but you can't have 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So that awareness, it takes a lot for us to be aware of how the foods are affecting us. And it takes time and it takes effort, but you're worth it. This is your body. It's the only body we're given, so let's take care of it. It's been a gift. Let's work with it.
Another question about sugar alcohol. It's in a lot of those Atkins foods and stuff like that.
Yes.
Is that a good idea to get that sugar alcohol?
Professionally, I'm not a fan. Sugar alcohols they're artificial sugars, is what they are. And that's the end of the word, ITOL, sorbitol. There's a bunch of them. But anything with like OSE is a sugar, that's a sugar. ITOL at the end of a word on your ingredient list, that's a sugar alcohol. Thank you for bringing that up. It's an artificial sugar. I'm not a fan. And you're right, a lot of keto has been really high. When you look at like the keto recipes and stuff, they've got a lot of sausage in there. They got a lot of, and again, look at the package of your sausage. What's in your sausage? I mean, you can find brands that are got like, your bacon. You can find a brand that has less nitrates in it and has less other yuck in it. But you have to look. You're gonna put bacon, and with the keto diet, again, if the keto diet works for you, that's great. But just, take a look, if your body's being disturbed from something, take a look at what you're studying. Look at the ingredients on
My
it.
doctor, she didn't recommend keto at all.
It works for people.
For me.
It works for people. I've seen it work. I've heard it work I've seen it and heard. It worked for people who got diagnosed with diabetes too. And it helped to stabilize, because of those proteins in the fat, it helped to stabilize their blood sugars. And so they were able to maintain that and not have to go on medication. I've seen it work for people who have to lose weight, typically people that lose a fair amount of weight. Most drastic diets, that are at one end or the other, most people cannot stay on them for a sustained period of time. And the more I look at vegetarians, no, it's bad, but a lot of times as they age, they find that they're craving protein. Like, there was a time that I took gluten totally out of my diet, and I was craving, I don't eat a lot of red meat, and I was craving red meat. I was told my mother when I was young enough, I couldn't become a vegetarian because I liked her tortilla and I liked her shish kebab. Those are two of my favorite, still to this day, are my two of my favorite foods. But I was just, I took gluten out. I wasn't a vegetarian, and like I probably do meats cut 2 to 3 times the rest of vegetarian. But I took gluten totally out of my diet. And it did great things. I lost my muffin top at over 50, so it did great things for me. But I was craving meat. And I talked to somebody about that, and they said because the gluten, which is in our grains, is a protein. So I was looking for more protein. At that time, I couldn't tell you how much I was eating meat or not, but my body was, so, listen, our bodies will talk to us, and they will tell us, we just need to listen. And I have cards over there, so if you have a question down the road or whatever, feel free to give me a call or an email. No hesitation in answering questions to the best of my ability. And remember, if you make big changes and you've got issues, talk to your doctor, but really think about what's best for you. Other questions?
As we get older, should we be taking in more calcium, particularly men or women?
That's another articles over
I
here.
know,
Support it.
it's all over
Articles over here that say you
Yeah.
don't really need it. Look at your health, look at your family history.
Mhm.
Look at your family history. Do you have a family history? Did your mother have significant osteoporosis? So look at your family history as an issue. Can you get calcium from your foods? Absolutely. Is it enough? Most of today's Western medicine will tell you no, and you need a calcium supplement.
It's very low.
Correct. And with supplements, there's lots of supplements out there. And I do support supplements because sometimes our body needs a little support. Again, look at the ingredient list. What's in there? The more whole foods you can get in a supplement, the better supplement, in my opinion, that supplement is. Does it have a lot of ick in it? Ick meaning stuff that you can't pronounce and you don't even know what it is. Then think about trying to find something else. It's kind of like I took this course on how to detox your life. And they talked about cosmetics and chemicals in our house, cleaning chemicals and stuff. Because those cleaning chemicals are toxins, right? And with cosmetics. And so I was like, okay, obviously I don't use a lot of cosmetics, but I'm like, okay, I do use face cream. So how can I increase my face cream? Did I throw all my face cream and sunscreen out? Absolutely not. I am too much for Yankee for that. So did I finish that out? And then the next time I went to buy something, I looked at, I tried to look at my options. and look at different brands to see what I could buy that had something less in it than what I was using. That's how I did that. So I just kind of took one step at a time.
One of the things that they taught us, I'm a massage therapist, and one of the things they taught us in school was you shouldn't put anything on your skin that you didn't bring out.
It's, I mean, really, moisturizer should be oil, right? If you take baths, Epsom salt baths are a great way to detox you. Great for inflammation. A little olive oil in there, soften up that skin, especially in the winter when you're dry as a bone. Yeah, people tell me all the time, well, it's not hot out, I don't want you to drink water. I don't care whether it's hot out or cold out, you need to drink water. But yeah, when you're cold, and I'm like this, when it's real cold, and if like during COVID, I didn't want to drink a lot of water because I wasn't going out and doing things, so so what I did was I made herbal tea. I made a lot of herbal teas, and a lot of times I was drinking it at room temperature anyway, because I was, I'd be doing something there.
I'm just gonna expand a little bit, because the thing is, so whatever you're eating is going through your digestive system, but it's being absorbed in your body. Whatever you put on your skin is being absorbed directly into your body and into your bloodstream. It's just not getting there through the digestive system.
Correct.
So that's why they taught us that.
Yes, and a lot of times if something's coming out of your skin, like you're breaking out, and you're like, I'm over 50 years old, why do I have acne? Again, your skin is your largest organ. So a lot of times your body's trying to get rid of something, so it tries to get rid of it. It can, a lot of times it'll use the skin to get rid of it. That's why people who are allergic to things break out in hives.
What do you think about cheese? That's my
Cheese?
downfall. Cheese, what kind of cheese?
Cheese, don't we? Moderation. If you don't have a dairy problem or a problem in digesting dairy, then I don't have a problem with cheese. A lot of cheese can constipate you. So it's with most foods, it's moderation. Coffee, moderation. I'm not telling you not to go to the birthday party for your grandchild and not eat the cake. Just do it within moderation. Maybe take a little small piece. Maybe you don't. My grandfather used to come over and have our cake with us, but he was diabetic, so he kept frosting on it. Never ate the frosting, but he always ate our cake. That was just his way to modify how much sugar he took in that day. So moderation. And if you're gonna eat cheese, eat good cheese.
Yeah, then budget do cheese.
Right.
That's what my son said. That's why the best one you like, the one you like more.
And you gotta be
Have a
careful
small
on that
pieces.
one, and you gotta be disciplined if you buy the best one you like, because then you wanna eat it more. So you have to be careful.
Well, the one you like most and rest.
Right, but if you've got the discipline to ration it, then buy the best one you like. And if you can ration it, then even if it's a little bit more expensive, you may, because you're rationing it, you may eat less of it. Because it's worth it, and it's worth to save and save, right? See, the games we play. Food, it's not about the food, it's about what we've learned when we were younger. It's about, the clean plate club. It's about all those habits we were brought up with. It's all those issues, it's all the emotions out there and all the stress out there, because we all have it. So it's all, we just, again, becoming aware of what's triggering us in any of those aspects, so that, we can, we know. We can rationalize. I can rationalize. And if it's something you don't, if you're not there yet, so then you only buy a little bit. Some people buy something and then they eat it all. the whole package of it. So, okay, if I eat it all in one day, then it's gone. Well, maybe try. Say, you know what, I'm only gonna eat whatever the serving is. And that's all I'm gonna eat for today, and then I'm gonna put it away. And then I'll have some more for tomorrow. It may work, it may not, it takes time for that to work. Takes time to break that particular habit. So, but be aware, just increase your awareness.
I think, for me anyway, there's that mindful eating when you only eat until you're full. Eat. I don't think I know when I'm full, so I'm kidding.
Well, you typically don't know, you don't feel fullness until like 20 minutes after. Okay, so a glass of water before dinner is a good way because the water fills up your stomach and then, you know, so you feel that sensation of fullness a little bit sooner. That's also a really good trick when you go into a party and don't want to eat everything at the party. Just make sure you're extremely well hydrated. And, you know, drink while you're there. The other thing is just start to put less on your plate. If you're not sitting at a table with a full family and serving family style, serving from the kitchen can be a way to do that, because if the food's on the table, you might help yourself to a little bit more. But if you have to get up and go to the kitchen, you might not do it. So put a little less on your plate. There's one trick. I'm not the biggest fan of this, but it works for some people. You know, again, whatever works. They'll just use smaller plates. So you put less food on it because it's smaller, but it looks like it's full. If that works for you, do it. You know, and then always, you know, always take some more vegetable. Fill up your plate with vegetable. Half your plate should really be vegetables. And then again, you can break down, you know, you're breaking down those vegetables with that. How many more nutrients are you getting? So, but those are a few tricks that fullness. The other thing is, I haven't done this. I have this trick that from being a mom and always, you know, as females, we're rush to get dinner together, get it hot, get it on the table, and everybody sits down, and nobody can have it. All right?
Yeah.
You know, and then you sit down, and then you're shoveling because you want to eat it hot, and you barely are tasting it. So I have this theory. Like I said, I haven't put it into place yet. I had this theory that I was going to put chopsticks on the table. Because you have to eat slower when you're eating chopsticks, right? You know, because you gotta work to pick it up. It's work to do that. Doesn't work. But I had this theory that, okay, I'm gonna put chopsticks on the table to try to slow me down, because during COVID, we had both our young adult daughters at home. My oldest one, my younger one was still in college, was finishing up college. My oldest one was displaced from COVID. But she did all the cooking, which was fantastic. It was fantastic for her because it gave her a job. She had purpose in the house. And I realized that during COVID, because I wasn't the one trying to make sure everything was, I helped her, so, you know, I did all the support staff and the cleaning and everything. But when I sat down, I didn't have as much stress from doing all that. I ate a lot slower. So I chewed my food, it got digested better. Probably helped with, you know, a lot of people worried about, you know, gaining weight during COVID, and, you know, I didn't gain weight, but I was probably digesting my food. So I got stress. So that's what the chopstick idea. She hasn't been in 2 years. They're still there, and every time I see them, I'm like, okay, I really need to do that. And I will someday, you know, I'll step into that, but I just haven't, you know, part of having the idea is just stepping into it. You know, and then, you know, like I think I've expressed this in one of the other classes, that there's this new theory out about exercise. That you find a time during the day that you're gonna exercise. The first week, at that time, you can set your alarm at that time. Okay, so maybe all you do the first day is go to the door and look outside. Okay, I'm gonna go for a walk now. Well, we should, we talked about this, yeah. I'm gonna go for a walk now. So you kind of hang out there for a little while, and look at the window, and watch the birds. And then you're like, okay, now I will. But every day at that time, you start developing the habits of preparing yourself to go for a walk. So that's what I'm doing with the chopsticks. I'm preparing myself actually. You know, and Bryce and I don't agree, so I can't, so I can't, Rice is easy with chopsticks, and they're nice sticky white rice.
Spaghetti's tricky.
Spaghetti is tricky.
Even if you cut it up, it's tricky to adjust.
Speaking of spaghetti, I do want to, chickpea pasta. Find it in the grocery store. There are sometimes they're in the pasta section, sometimes they're in the gluten-free section, like in Hannaford. You can tell where I shop, right? There's that whole, on the opposite side of the meat, there's that whole gluten-free section there.
Mhm.
Do you all know what that?
Yeah.
That's what that section is? It's all gluten-free products. Who's buying this? Chickpea pasta tends to has more protein in it than regular pasta. Now, this is 20 grams and 8 grams of fiber. So I'll just tell you, I have this box in my house. So the serving size is the same. Make sure if you're comparing, you've got the same serving size. Okay, protein is 11 grams in the chickpea pasta for 2 ounces, and it's 7 grams in the whole wheat. And your whole wheat's probably gonna have more protein in it than regular white pasta, but it's all I have in my house to compare it to. So I don't know where they got this 20 grams thing, but so again, just be careful of what you're reading, because that's their marketing. They want to sell it to you. So the chickpea pasta also has vitamin D, calcium, iron, potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Just FYI. And for fiber, it has 5 grams, and whole wheat has 5 grams. Absolutely. Thank you for coming. But that's another easy way to get increase in protein in your diet, is the chickpea pasta. It's also gluten free if you have so if you want to change. The other reason I brought these boxes is just to look at when you're looking at this part, when you're trying to make that decision, like, okay, which one's better for me? Pick one item. Whether it's you want to increase your protein in your diet, you want to decrease the sugar in your diet, you want to increase the fiber in your diet. Pick one thing, because I'll tell you, you look at 2 boxes. Oh, this one's better in fiber. This one's better for sugar. And so how confused are you going to be? Never mind the fact that you're going to be there at the grocery store for 15 minutes. You don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. You know, pick 2. If this is your typical granola bar, then pick one of the box. I'm not going to tell you what box, just pick a box and look at it. Okay, I want to increase my fiber. So which one has more fiber? This one has 2 grams and this one has 3 grams. Okay, this one wins today. Take it home, try it, see if you like it. If you don't like it, well, then it loses. If you don't like them, then you pass them on to a friend, see if they like them. Right. I will tell you between ingredients, if I'm looking at specifically ingredients, this has
Two
two ingredients.
Those are good.
Yep.
Cashews and dates. All have. Lara bars. Is there
Yep.
Hannaford, yeah.
You can get 'em at
And but
Walmart.
again, not every Lara bar has only two ingredients in it.
Right.
So you gotta look at your ingredients. I think the blueberry muffin one might have like 5 ingredients in it, but there's a chocolate chip one that has other ingredients in it. And then they change things on you, they
Yes,
change,
they do
and then
that.
like, what are you doing this? You know, you work hard to find something that works for you and that fits the category, you know, fits all you, and then they go and
What's in the box?
change it up on you, you know, which is frustrating. But, you know, and this has good stuff in it. But it's got brown sugar syrup in it, and it's got soy lactane in it, and it's got sugar in it. Sugar's the second ingredient.
Nice.
Right, it is past 11:30, it's way past. I'm happy to